The Venusian tone is often misunderstood because humans hear the word Venus and immediately project romance, softness, seduction, beauty as decoration, or pleasure as escape. That projection is not harmless, because it collapses a sophisticated frequency into a single human appetite, and then calls it spirituality. The Venusian tone does not exist to make you comfortable. It exists to make you coherent inside desire, so desire no longer makes you obedient. It is the tone where attraction stops acting like gravity that pulls you blindly and starts acting like intelligence that reveals what you have been unconsciously seeking. Most people do not choose what they want. Most people inherit what they want. They absorb it from family, culture, trauma, advertising, loneliness, and unspoken hunger. Then they build a personality around that hunger and call it preference. The Venusian tone enters this exact confusion and asks a question the mind cannot answer without exposing itself. Are you desiring the thing, or are you desiring the state you believe the thing will give you? Once that question lands, you can no longer pretend desire is simple. This tone is not anti-pleasure, it is anti-possession. Pleasure can be clean. Possession cannot. Possession carries fear of loss, and fear of loss turns beauty into a cage. The Venusian tone reveals how often humans do not love what is beautiful. They capture it. They capture it with labels, with commitments they cannot honor, with jealousy disguised as devotion, with control disguised as protection. This is not moral failure, it is frequency mismatch. A nervous system that cannot hold beauty without gripping it has not learned Venusian coherence. One vector of the Venusian tone is the architecture of beauty. Beauty is not decoration, beauty is information. Beauty signals alignment between form and function, between expression and essence, between surface and depth. When beauty is real, it reduces internal resistance. When beauty is manipulative, it increases it. The Venusian tone trains discernment at this level. It teaches you how to feel the difference between beauty that invites your coherence and beauty that hijacks your attention. The difference is not subtle once you have the sensitivity to notice consequence. Humans live inside a constant war over attention. Whoever controls attention controls identity. Beauty has been weaponized because it is one of the fastest ways to seize attention. The Venusian tone does not shame beauty. It liberates beauty from exploitation. It returns beauty to its original role, which is to reveal harmony and call beings toward what is true. That is why this tone is benevolent but dangerous to false structures. Anything that survives by hijacking desire becomes unstable in its presence. Another vector of the Venusian tone is the relationship between desire and worth. Humans often seek what they think will increase their worth, and they often avoid what might expose their lack of worth. This creates a pattern where desire becomes performance and rejection becomes identity. The Venusian frequency dismantles this pattern by removing the need for worth to be negotiated externally. When you are coherent inside yourself, you do not need approval to validate attraction. You can want without begging. You can admire without chasing. You can be drawn without being dragged. The Venusian tone reveals the hidden economy behind many relationships. People trade attention for safety, beauty for power, sex for belonging, loyalty for identity, money for relief, romance for meaning. They call it love, but the transaction is felt by the body even when the mind denies it. The Venusian tone exposes the transaction without condemning the people in it. It shows you the cost. It shows you what part of you is being rented out and what part of you is starving. It forces a quiet confrontation with the question, if this is love, why does it require you to become smaller? Many resist this tone because they think it will take away their pleasure. That resistance reveals the real fear. The fear is that if desire becomes clean, the old addictions will be seen as addictions. If attraction becomes coherent, the old patterns will be seen as captivity. The Venusian tone does not remove pleasure. It removes the compulsion that makes pleasure a substitute for wholeness. That is why this frequency feels both comforting and threatening. It comforts the part of you that wants truth, and it threatens the part of you that survives by fantasy. There is a kind of suffering that is glamour-coded. It looks like passion. It looks like intensity. It looks like destiny. But it is actually nervous system dysregulation bonded to a story. The Venusian tone interrupts that bond. It asks you to feel what is happening beneath the story. Are you alive, or are you activated? Are you drawn, or are you destabilized? Are you in connection, or are you in pursuit? These questions do not sound spiritual until you realize they decide your entire life. A third vector of the Venusian tone is coherence inside embodiment. Humans often treat the body as a tool or an obstacle. They use it to get attention, or they punish it for wanting attention. They decorate it, restrict it, numb it, or dissociate from it, then wonder why intimacy feels unsafe. The Venusian tone restores the body as a site of truth rather than shame. It teaches that the body is not the enemy of spirit. The body is the instrument through which spirit becomes measurable. This tone is not about sensuality as indulgence. It is about sensation as guidance. Sensation tells you what is aligned before your beliefs catch up. When your body is regulated, sensation becomes precise. When your body is dysregulated, sensation becomes distorted, and you call distortion chemistry. The Venusian tone refines the bodily instrument so attraction becomes reliable rather than chaotic. It teaches you to trust your yes only after you have learned the difference between yes and impulse. People confuse impulse with truth because impulse is loud. The Venusian tone makes truth louder than impulse by stabilizing the nervous system underneath desire. It does this by confronting the hidden fear that many people carry. The fear that if they stop chasing, nothing will come. The fear that if they stop performing, they will be invisible. The fear that if they stop gripping, they will be abandoned. The Venusian frequency meets that fear without comforting it too early. It lets you feel the fear long enough to see that the fear is what has been choosing for you. This is why the Venusian tone can feel like a mirror. It reflects the places where you have used beauty as a strategy. It reflects the places where you have used affection as currency. It reflects the places where you have confused intensity for love, because calm felt unfamiliar. It reveals that the craving for drama is often a craving for sensation, and the craving for sensation is often a craving to feel real. The Venusian tone does not shame that craving. It redirects it toward embodiment that does not destroy you. There is also a subtle cruelty in the way humans treat beauty. They demand it, consume it, and punish it for existing. They elevate it, then resent it. They worship it, then use it. They say they want truth, but they reward performance. The Venusian tone changes the reward system. It makes truth attractive again. It makes coherence beautiful again. It makes presence more compelling than image. This is not a moral program. It is a frequency recalibration. You will notice the Venusian tone by what it refuses to participate in. It refuses to chase. It refuses to prove. It refuses to manipulate attention. It refuses to seduce the mind while betraying the body. It does not do this out of coldness. It does this because it knows that any connection formed through distortion will demand more distortion later. If the entry point is performance, the maintenance becomes prison. The Venusian tone refuses that prison early. This is where many listeners will feel resistance. They will say that love requires sacrifice. They will say that real passion is supposed to hurt. They will say that longing proves depth. These ideas are not truths. They are coping strategies made into mythology. The Venusian tone does not argue with the mythology. It asks you to check the consequences. If love requires you to abandon yourself, why do you call it love? If passion requires you to destabilize, why do you call it sacred? If longing is constant, why do you call it connection? The Venusian tone is the frequency of sacred attraction, but sacred attraction is not obsession. Sacred attraction is alignment recognized through the body and affirmed through coherence. Obsession is nervous system, hunger seeking relief. Sacred attraction expands you. Obsession contracts you. Sacred attraction stabilizes. Obsession destabilizes. Sacred attraction respects timing. Obsession demands immediacy. These are not poetic distinctions. These are functional diagnostics. The tone also reveals how often humans have been trained to confuse being wanted with being valued. Being wanted can be predatory. Being valued requires seeing. The Venusian tone teaches you to want what sees you rather than what consumes you. It teaches you to value what brings out your coherence rather than what triggers your coping. This feels like losing excitement at first, because you have been calling volatility excitement. Then you realize a deeper excitement exists. The excitement of being met without distortion. The excitement of being chosen without fear. This frequency does not eliminate mystery. It eliminates manipulation. Mystery remains because no being can fully predict another being. Manipulation ends because manipulation is the attempt to control what you do not trust. The Venusian tone builds trust by building internal coherence first. If you can trust your own inner state, you can approach connection without needing to control the outcome. The Venusian tone also interacts with art and creation. Many creators produce from hunger. They use art to earn love they did not receive. They use performance to avoid abandonment. They use applause to medicate shame. The Venusian frequency does not punish creators for this. It simply reveals that creation from hunger eventually becomes exhausting because hunger never fills. Creation from coherence becomes sustainable because it is expression rather than extraction. This is where the tone becomes revolutionary. It changes the motive force behind beauty. Beauty is often treated as a surface. The Venusian tone restores beauty as a signal of internal order. A life can be beautiful. A conversation can be beautiful. A boundary can be beautiful. A refusal can be beautiful. Truth can be beautiful even when it disappoints fantasy. The Venusian tone trains you to recognize this deeper beauty, so you stop worshiping surfaces and start building coherence. At this stage, the core insight has not yet arrived in its final form, because it must be pressed through consequence. The tone is not about love as emotion. It is about love as alignment that does not require self-betrayal. But if that is true, why do so many humans experience love as suffering? If that is true, why do so many people feel most alive when they are destabilized? If that is true, why does calm feel boring to a nervous system trained by chaos? The Venusian tone forces these questions to remain open long enough to reveal the answer that most people avoid. It is possible that what you have been calling love was actually a pattern of regulation seeking. It is possible that what you have been calling chemistry was actually trauma recognition. It is possible that what you have been calling destiny was actually repetition. These possibilities are not accusations. They are invitations to honesty. The Venusian tone does not take romance away. It takes illusion away. And illusion is what makes romance collapse into pain. If you stay with this frequency long enough, you begin to feel a new kind of attraction, one that does not spike anxiety. It does not demand pursuit. It does not create urgency. It feels steady. It feels warm. It feels like a door opening rather than a trap closing. Many will mistrust this because it does not resemble their past. That mistrust is part of the process. The Venusian tone lets you feel the mistrust without obeying it. The tone also teaches that intimacy is not closeness. Intimacy is truth without punishment. Many people can be physically close and emotionally hidden. Many people can speak affection and avoid reality. The Venusian frequency makes avoidance uncomfortable, not through shame, but through mismatch. Performance feels heavy. Honesty feels light. You begin to prefer what is light. This tone is also benevolent in a way that threatens social games. It interrupts flirtation that is actually negotiation. It interrupts charm that is actually control. It interrupts affection that is actually manipulation. In its presence, you can still be playful, but play no longer masks fear. You can still be romantic, but romance no longer masks avoidance. You can still be sensual, but sensation no longer masks dissociation. The Venusian tone restores sanctity to the body by removing shame from sensation and removing compulsion from desire. It teaches you that the body is sacred not because it is pure, but because it is honest. The body tells the truth faster than the mind. That is why people betray the body first. They numb it, override it, or perform through it. The Venusian frequency ends that betrayal by making the body feel trustworthy again. You begin to notice that your standards change. Not your standards for beauty, but your standards for coherence. You stop being impressed by intensity. You stop being impressed by attention. You stop being impressed by the image of love. You become impressed by consistency, by truth, by regulation, by mutual presence. This is where the tone becomes obvious. It changes what you respect. The core insight is approaching, but it should not stabilize yet, because it must still pass through the final pressure. If attraction is intelligence, then desire is diagnostic. If desire is diagnostic, then the life you have built reveals what you have been unconsciously seeking. If that is true, then every chase has been a confession. Every obsession has been a message. Every pattern has been an attempt to recover something missing. The Venusian tone does not allow you to keep chasing without reading the message. And once you read the message, you face a final discomfort that cannot be avoided. You realize that you can no longer blame the world for giving you the wrong thing, because you can now see what you are asking for without knowing you are asking. That realization can feel heavy, because it removes the comfort of victimhood. It also feels liberating, because it returns the power to choose. The Venusian tone is the frequency where beauty becomes truth, and love becomes coherence, and desire becomes literacy. It teaches you how to want without worshiping, how to love without bargaining, how to feel without collapsing, how to be drawn without being dragged. It does not conclude this teaching with reassurance, because reassurance would end the pressure too early. It leaves you with a question that will keep working after the video ends. If your desire became fully coherent, what would you stop chasing immediately? And what would you finally allow yourself to receive? When the Venusian tone continues its work, the discomfort deepens in a way that feels personal rather than abstract. You begin to notice that desire does not simply pull you toward people or objects. It organizes your entire life without asking permission. Time bends around what you want. Attention narrows. Energy reallocates itself. You realize that desire has been acting as a hidden architect, shaping choices you believed were rational. This realization destabilizes identity, because it reveals that many decisions were not chosen consciously, but followed attraction like gravity. At this stage, many attempt to regain control by intellectualizing desire. They analyze patterns, name attachment styles, cite psychology, or retreat into spiritual language. None of this resolves the pressure because the Venusian tone is not working at the level of explanation. It is working at the level of honesty between the body and awareness. Explanation delays integration when sensation is still unread. The tone forces you back into direct contact with what you feel, rather than what you think about what you feel. Desire begins to show its true function. It is not a command, it is a signal. Signals only become dangerous when they are mistaken for orders. The Venusian frequency separates signal from obedience. You learn to feel attraction fully, without immediately acting on it. This separation feels unnatural at first, because most humans were trained to equate feeling with action. When that reflex dissolves, space appears. In that space, discernment becomes possible. This is where the second vector intensifies. The tone reveals how often attraction has been used to escape the present. Many people chase beauty to avoid stillness. They pursue connection to avoid solitude. They seek intensity to avoid silence. The Venusian tone does not remove beauty or connection. It removes the escape function. Attraction no longer rescues you from yourself. It brings you back into yourself. This is why the tone can feel confronting, even when nothing external changes. You may notice a strange quiet settling around your impulses. Old urges still arise, but they no longer dominate. You can feel them without being consumed. This creates a temporary sense of emptiness that many misinterpret as loss. It is not loss. It is the absence of compulsion. The nervous system is recalibrating. It no longer needs to be stimulated to feel alive. This phase is often misunderstood because the culture equates constant desire with vitality. The Venusian tone reveals that vitality comes from presence, not pursuit. Another layer surfaces here. Shame. Not the obvious kind, but the subtle shame tied to wanting. Many people learned early that desire was dangerous, selfish, or unacceptable. Others learned that desire was the only way to receive attention. Both patterns distort attraction. The Venusian tone does not shame desire. It removes shame from desire by allowing it to be seen clearly. What can be seen without judgment loses its power to control. As shame dissolves, desire becomes quieter and more specific. You stop wanting everything. You stop being impressed by what is available. You stop chasing what looks good on the surface. Your attraction begins to narrow toward what actually nourishes you. This narrowing can feel like losing options. In reality, it is gaining precision. Precision feels restrictive only to a system addicted to excess. The third vector emerges through relational consequence. Relationships formed through incoherent desire begin to strain, not because conflict increases, but because tolerance for misalignment decreases. You become less willing to negotiate your body signals. You stop overriding discomfort for the sake of harmony. You stop performing desire to keep connection alive. This can create tension with people who benefited from your previous compliance. Here, many mistake coherence for coldness. They say you have changed. They say you are distant. They say you are no longer fun. What they mean is that you are no longer predictable. The Venusian tone disrupts predictability rooted in need. It replaces it with consistency rooted in truth. This is destabilizing for systems that depended on your self-abandonment. You begin to recognize how often desire was used as currency, how you offered attraction to receive validation, how you withheld attraction to punish, how you amplified attraction to secure safety. The Venusian tone does not accuse you of manipulation, it shows you the cost. Every time desire becomes currency, intimacy becomes debt. Every time intimacy becomes debt, resentment accumulates silently. The tone interrupts this economy before it collapses you. This frequency also reframes rejection. Rejection no longer feels like a verdict on your worth. It feels like information about mismatch. When desire is coherent, rejection does not threaten identity. It clarifies alignment. This is a profound shift because it removes desperation from attraction. You no longer need to be chosen to feel real. You need resonance to feel present. The Venusian tone also exposes how often longing was mistaken for depth. Longing can feel profound because it is unresolved. Resolution often feels ordinary by comparison. This creates a dangerous loop where people chase longing to feel alive. The Venusian frequency breaks this loop by revealing that depth exists in stability, not deprivation. This realization does not arrive gently. It dismantles a myth many lives were built upon. At this point, attraction begins to reorganize around coherence rather than intensity. You notice that calm becomes appealing. Regulation becomes attractive. Presence becomes magnetic. This feels countercultural because culture glorifies volatility. The Venusian tone restores attraction to what can sustain, rather than what can excite briefly. You may also notice your relationship with beauty change. You no longer feel compelled to possess what is beautiful. You can appreciate without gripping. You can admire without envy. Beauty stops triggering comparison and starts triggering gratitude. This shift alone releases enormous internal pressure. Creation changes as well. When desire is coherent, creativity no longer seeks approval. It seeks expression. You create because something wants to move through you, not because you want to be seen. This removes desperation from art and restores joy. The Venusian tone returns creation to play rather than performance. The nervous system continues to recalibrate. You may feel moments of boredom that are actually restlessness leaving. You may feel moments of neutrality that are actually balance arriving. These states can feel unfamiliar because they are not dramatic. The Venusian tone teaches you that drama was never evidence of meaning. Drama was evidence of dysregulation. At this stage, a core insight begins to sharpen, but still resists full stabilization. Desire is not the enemy. Desire is the language through which alignment communicates. But a language can be misused. When desire speaks and you obey blindly, you become enslaved. When desire speaks and you listen intelligently, you become sovereign. The difference is not discipline. It is literacy. Desire literacy changes everything. You stop asking whether you want something and start asking why it wants you. You stop asking how strong the attraction is and start asking what state it produces in you. Does it expand or contract? Does it stabilize or agitate? Does it bring you into presence or pull you into fantasy? These questions reframe attraction as diagnostic rather than directive. This creates a final pressure point that many resist. If desire is diagnostic, then your past attractions were not mistakes. They were messages. Messages about what you lacked, what you avoided, what you believed you needed to become whole. This realization removes blame, but also removes excuses. You can no longer say you did not know. You can only say you were not listening. The Venusian tone does not rush forgiveness here. Forgiveness that arrives too early becomes bypass. It allows the discomfort to persist long enough for responsibility to integrate. Responsibility not as guilt, but as authorship. You begin to see that you have been writing your life through attraction whether you intended to or not. As this integrates, a new quality of desire emerges. It feels grounded. It feels patient. It feels mutual rather than consuming. It does not demand immediate resolution. It does not collapse into fantasy. It invites presence rather than pursuit. This is not lesser desire. It is mature desire. The tone does not conclude with certainty because certainty would close the inquiry prematurely. It leaves you standing at a threshold where attraction no longer controls you. But clarity demands that you choose differently. You cannot return to unconscious wanting. You cannot unknow what you now feel. The Venusian Tone ultimately asks a question that cannot be answered verbally. Can you allow beauty to move you without owning it? Can you allow desire to inform you without directing you? Can you allow love to meet you without bargaining pieces of yourself in exchange? The answer will not come from thought. It will come from how you live after the video ends. If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Vaharat library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.